Happy Saturday night. It is 8 p.m. Central Time where I am, and I might wait a little longer just this while some people jump on. And hopefully everybody's had a good week. Wanted to catch up on a few cases. I got a little bit of new information on Freaky Fred Manali. We did do the Freaky Fred Manali finale, but I had a few more things come in about him that Tony sent me. And speaking of Tony, he did send me a comment about the last video upload I did, of course, about the murders at Reelfoot Lake. And if anybody has any comments about that, definitely put them in the comment section for that video, because I thought that was an interesting case, because this man, I mean, he was just, I think he was 70 years old. He just flipped out and killed two people. I mean, and he thought he was having dementia, and he just freaks out and kills two young men. I mean, it's a terrible tragedy, but it's odd what would cause him to do that. I mean, if he just kind of snapped and did it once, but he did it twice. He killed two different men. I mean, fairly close together, but he killed two different guys. And, you know, it was something definitely mental going on with this guy, because there was nothing in his background that was angry or anything like that. But Tony wrote this. He said, "The first thing I thought of was a brain tumor. It could cause such erratic behavior. They must have looked for brain damage during the autopsy." I don't know that they probably did, Tony. I mean, I think they found his body. I think they said he died of hypothermia when they found him, but they did do an autopsy. I don't think they found anything that, you know, they couldn't really, I guess, dissect his brain and really see what was going on. But yeah, if he had a brain tumor, I'm sure they would have found that in the autopsy. There was definitely that would have been intact. But Tony goes on to say, "Evidently, they didn't find anything. Antidepressants can cause erratic behavior." We do know that man was taking antidepressant in the months leading up to those two murders at Reelfoot Lake. He said, "Mania is uncommon, but it does happen in rare cases. It is more common in the elderly, especially with dementia." And he thought he was getting dementia, but he never made it to his doctor's appointment to formally be diagnosed with dementia. And he said when asked why he shot the first guy, he answered, "I don't know." And that was according to Jeff Crabtree's testimony. When he shot, he said, "I don't know." Like, he didn't know what he was doing. But like I said, he did it twice. He shot one of the guys, and then when he got back in the boat, he grabbed another shotgun that they didn't know he had access to, and then he shot the other young hunter. And then, of course, Jeff Crabtree was the lone survivor. I'm getting to that, Bat Falcon. Clearly, the killer knew something was wrong for a while. I suspect a rare side effect of the drug or drugs he was taking may be coupled with dementia. He really didn't know what he was doing. That's true. That's what it seems like, Tony, that David Vowell did not know what he was doing when he shot these two young guys. Apparently, he knew how to get his boat to the boat ramp. He knew how to still load a shotgun, but he was forgetting certain things. Yeah, Jarvis, I'm wondering about the propane for sure. Yeah, that's a good point about the propane that was on at the other duck blind, because David Vowell was at another duck blind before he came over to the ones where the three guys were, and they said that the propane was left on the cooking stove. So that maybe that, coupled with his mental illness and antidepressants and thinking he's getting dementia, could have added to it. But I'm sure he was out in the air, clear air for a while when he drove his boat down to the other duck blind. So I don't know. It's really strange how this guy just snapped like that. I mean, he had no violence in his past. He never snapped at anyone that anyone ever knew of. He ran a successful company for years and years and years. That's still going, by the way. I think, I don't know if he has any descendants working there, but I think his nephews work at that construction supply company down in Tennessee. So that's just a strange one. I'm going to definitely follow up on that case and see what else is going on. But as Bat Falcon mentioned, of course, this is the anniversary of this is Elvis's birthday, and Elvis Presley would have been 87 years old today. So happy birthday, Elvis. Always going to miss Elvis. I'm a big Elvis fan. I was an Elvis fan since I was really little, because my grandmother always had Elvis records. My mom was an Elvis fan. My aunt, uncles were all big Elvis fans. Always had the albums, always heard the music growing up. And I think, God, my favorite was my grandmother had the Moody Blue album. That's Elvis's last studio album, and it had songs like Way On Down on it, and I love that song, Way Down. And I think that was all recorded at Graceland, or most of that album, Moody Blue, was recorded at Graceland. So here's a picture of me doing my greatest Elvis impersonation at my niece's birthday. I don't remember how old I was there, but I did like 4 or 5 Elvis songs karaoke style at my niece's birthday. I know I did Little Sister. I think I did Way Down. maybe I did Moody Blue. I can't remember. I did like 4 or 5 songs, but that was a lot of fun. Of course, my favorite Elvis song of all time, and everybody definitely feel free to put your favorite Elvis song in the comments section, but mine's always been Kentucky Rain, and that, of course, Eddie Rabbitt wrote that song, but it's my favorite Elvis song. And when I first got to go to Graceland, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, I was by myself because I was traveling for work, so I had an opportunity to go. Finally, thank God. I always wanted to go to Graceland, so I finally got to go. And across the street from where the Graceland house is, across Elvis Presley Boulevard in Memphis, is this huge setup. It's bigger than Graceland itself. It's because they built it over the years because it's such a big tourist attraction. It's really the only big tourist attraction in Memphis, other than the big Pyramid Bass Pro Shop downtown, but. Anyway, it's huge. It's got some restaurants, and there's this big area where you go in to buy your tickets, and then you take a little bus. Literally, the bus just takes you across the street to Graceland. And on that side of the road where you buy your tickets, the Lisa Marie jet is there. Then another jet Elvis owned, and you can go on those jets. I didn't. I just did the house tour. But when I first walked into the big building where you walk up to buy your ticket to go to Graceland, I think it was like $55 or something like that for the tour of just the house. And there's a museum, built onto the house at Graceland. But as soon as I walked in the building, it started playing Kentucky Rain. So I was like, that was a sign for me. That was the right day to go to Graceland, and the weather was perfect. I don't remember what month it was, but that was just a great sign, here in Kentucky Rain playing as I'm buying my ticket to get on and go across the street. And then I always had a bunch of little Elvis knickknacks from just through the years. This is this little Elvis pamphlet that came out 16 years after his death. And I have all these little things. I guess either my mom gave them to me or I just collected them through the years. And this is cool. It's got, it's by Joe West, and it's got all these different things about Elvis. I mean, even the bad stuff. It's just, it covers it all in just this little bitty pamphlet. It's like everything you want to know about Elvis. And I'll read part of it. It says, monster hit. It says, the biggest hit of all was the haunting 1956 release, Heartbreak Hotel. Tommy Durden, a retired dishwasher repairman, teamed up with Nashville songwriter Mae Boren Axton, the mother of country singer and actor Hoyt Axton. I didn't even know that, to compose the mega hit in only 22 minutes. Durden was playing guitar with smiling Jack Jering and his swing billies in Gainesville, Florida, when he got the idea for a newspaper story about a man who committed suicide. The suicide was found clutching a note that read, "I walk a lonely street." Curiously, the word blue figured in several of Elvis's hits and other popular songs as he recorded Blue Moon in Kentucky, love that song too, early Elvis. Blue Christmas, Moody Blue, I love that song, just mentioned that album. Blueberry Hill and When My Blue Moon Turns to Gold are a few. Blue Suede Shoes, penned by Carl Perkins in 1955 as a result of an experience while playing at a high school dance, was one of Elvis's favorites. Perkins related that he was watching a boy dance with a beautiful girl when the teenager warned his partner, "Uh-oh, don't step on my blue suede shoes." So it's just a little Elvis background there. I love this little thing. It's in pretty good shape. I mean, I've had this thing for like 30 years, just perfect. So happy birthday, Elvis. It's always just left a big impact on me, of course. So I always never want to miss marking that occasion. So anyway, going back to Fred Manali, I know that Chevy Cat Black asked about the Jane Doe. And I know I sent myself something on that because after I did that episode, Tony was listening and sent me more on the Jane Doe from this Santa Rosa Hitchhikers thing. So if I can't find that really quick, because I put this all in my email, I'll look it up. But Tony sent the information over for the Santa Rosa Violent Crimes Unit. It's called the VCI. It's comprised of 1 detective sergeant and 4 detectives. VCI also handles cold case homicides. A cold case homicide is defined as any unsolved homicide in Sonoma County and has no significant leads and is no longer being actively investigated by detectives based on lack of solvability factors. And then he's got all the numbers here for the coroner's office, investigations, records, and media. So I might try to reach out to some of these people and try to get more on their radar about Fred Manali, because I don't know why that would take so long. So going back, Actually, Tony's got a record here for the Jane Doe that I was just talking about, because I know Chevy Cat Black mentioned maybe being able to go find where she was buried and leave some flowers or something, which is great because I know she lives up in that area. And this is what it says about the Sonoma County Jane Doe, as she's called. It says, Sonoma County Jane Doe was a female found in a ravine in 1979. The location was a dumping ground for the Santa Rosa hitchhiker murders, in which she remains the only unidentified victim. She is believed to have died in 1972, so that took a long time to find her. The victim's remains were found in a ravine off of Calistoga Road, 100 yards from where the body of Lori Lee Cursa was discovered 7 years earlier. She had been bound and unclothed. The exact cause of death could not be determined, although the circumstances strongly indicated homicide. A rope was around the decedent's neck, hands, and feet. It was looped with ankle bones sticking through it and stretched up through the back vertebrae and wrapped four times around the third and second neck vertebrae. The rope used to bind her was either a clothesline or a Venetian blind cord. Grommets and fabric pieces found with the remains indicate the body was placed inside a duffel or laundry type bag before being dumped, and samples of auburn or reddish hair were found on site. Those with more information regarding the identity of Jane Doe are asked to contact Sonoma County Sheriff's Office, and then it gives all the numbers. And then Tony, I think, wrote this. Jane Doe's remains were interred in a cemetery crypt in the Russian River Cemetery in the city of Ukiah. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And it says death certificate attached, which Tony, thanks for providing that. Thanks for all the information you're providing, Tony. And it says burial January 22nd, 1980, Chapel of the Chime Cemetery, Santa Rosa, California. And then he's got that. So there you go, Chevy Cat. That's where the Sonoma County murders Jane Doe is buried. So I don't know why it took them so long to find her. It seems like they found the rest and didn't take so long. So I wanted to switch gears real quick, and I might go back to Santa Rosa, but I wanted to thank my buddy Nicholas Broughton for sending me this little piece on DB Cooper. And I didn't realize till I went through the analytics of this channel today, there was a lot of new people that had come on and subscribed that were watching a lot of the DB Cooper stuff. I know I did the stuff on Richard Floyd McCoy. But, you know, if people have their favorite DB Cooper suspect, you don't have to like mine. I like them. You know, I like talking about them all. They're all characters in their own right. Yeah, I have my favorite. I like Ted Braden for a lot of reasons. But I'm beyond this, you know, hey, you're wrong, here's why I'm right kind of thing. I mean, if I convince 2 or 3 people, or if you even go buy the book, I'm still going to have to go to my crummy job on Monday. And it just doesn't make a difference. So if somebody likes Kenny Christensen or William Wolfgang Gossett as DB Cooper, that's great. I used to like Gossett. Somebody asked me about that lately. Was it Jim? What I've thought about Wolfgang Gossett. I like Wolfgang Gossett as a DB Cooper suspect, by the way. I always liked him with, ever since Galen Cook came on to Coast and talked about Gossett. He had a lot of stuff going for it. Was Ted Seffer? You never asked about Braden before. Was he arrested in 75? I don't know, Seffer. I've got to go back and look. I mean, yeah, he was a criminal. Ted Braden was a criminal. And when did he get indicted for the fish and meat thefts? Was that in the 70s? I think it was, where Ted Braden stole some fish and meat and drove across state lines. He also got on another federal rap, and he was put into Loretto Federal Penitentiary in Pennsylvania. And that was around 1985 for the Loretto beef. And he wasn't in there really long because, like I said, Braden always had this get out of jail free card. And it seemed like he was probably burned a lot of them out. So I think he had to do a little time in Loretto Federal Penitentiary. But we don't exactly know for what crime. But I ran into another guy on Facebook who was a CIA contractor that did a lot of electronics. And he swears he ran into Braden over in El Salvador. And then when I pushed him a little bit more on it, he said, no, he looked like the guy, but he was kind of wink, wink. It was him over in El Salvador in 85. So who knows? I mean, they could have gotten Braden out of jail, did a job for the CIA, put him back in there for a few days for window dressing. That's just one of the crazy things about Braden. But anyway, you know, that's why he's the hardest he's the last person CIA or the FBI would ever admit to, because if he was Cooper, they can't say, well, we couldn't, you know, pull him in for the crimes because he knew too much. And we couldn't kill him because he had too many friends at the State Department, which is a fact. He had friends at the State Department, not just General Singlaw, but he had other friends there that could protect him. I'm sure there's people that hated him and wanted to kill him. but he had a lot of buddies that didn't want him killed. So what do you do? Okay, Patty said, I knew you know this well. Ted was indicted in 1980 for the fish and meat theft. So there you go, Suffer. I think I'm going to go with Patty because I know she knows it well. So he was indicted for the fish and meat thefts. I think he was using his, he was a long haul trucker, so he had a bunch of, I don't know if this stuff was packed in ice or what, but this was a crazy shit that Ted Braden did. He would arrange his loads to be stolen. He would just say, hey, pick up my load. I got a load of whatever he had, materials of something of value. And he would just act, and then he'd just call into the trucking thing. Hey, I walked out of the restaurant and my cab was gone. So I think they eventually caught up with a lot of those things that Braden did. And I mean, they were, pretty well planned out. I'm sure he got away with a lot of those shenanigans before he just couldn't do it anymore. I know he got pulled over for drunk driving once and he refused to give his name. Severett said he found an article about his arrest in 75. Check that. I don't know. I mean, if there may be an arrest in 75, Severett, that I don't know about. So email me. I know you have my email. We email a lot. So send me that if you can find that article. I'd love to see it. I mean, I'd be shocked if there was something that was out there in the newspaper about Braden that I missed, but I don't recall if there was one in 75. One thing I did find before about Braden is somebody named Ted Braden bought a racehorse in Washington State, I think in 73. So this isn't too long after the Cooper skyjacking. And it would have been, I mean, if you could peg him to that horse would be huge because there went some of the money maybe. He literally bought a racehorse and the racehorse's name was Mary's Bow. And Ted Braden's mother was named, her name was Mary Dearbaugh. But I think the horse was already had that name before Braden could have bought it. But of course the jockey had died and another owner had died. I couldn't track it down, but it was just Ted Braden. It wasn't Ted B. Braden. Ted Braden's fairly uncommon name actually, but Ted B. Braden's very uncommon when you add the B, and it didn't have the B, so I don't know if that was him that bought the racehorse or not, but it's definitely interesting. But yeah, Ted Braden was a criminal for sure. He did contract work with the CIA, did a lot of nasty stuff. Who knows the depths of what that guy did, because they knew his abilities, they knew what he could do. The Black Ops stuff in Vietnam was just the icing on the cake for what he knew, what the CIA was doing globally. And he had their secrets, and they didn't want them getting spilled. So why didn't they just kill him? Who knows? He probably had a buddy that said, if I ever die, this stuff's going to be all over the place. And like I said, he had very powerful friends that could have just said, hey, this guy, he stays alive because I like him. So I think that had a lot to do with it. Obviously, we know he murdered somebody, like I did on that one broadcast over in Vietnam, a friendly fighter where he was found face down in a rice paddy with a gun, with a bullet wound to the back of his head, and who knows what that dispute was over. But the guy was on our side, so of course they brushed that under the rug. That's like everything Ted Braden did; it just got brushed under the rug. How many guys desert Vietnam, go fight as a mercenary, and then they get a general discharge from the military? And the court martial's not even held because Harold K. Johnson intervenes on your behalf, which that makes me think of another thing. Somebody's wanting me to do a video on the whole Prison Break TV show DB Cooper conspiracy, and I know some of you already know it if I've told it before. I did tell that on Darren Schaefer's Cooper Vortex about the whole bizarre thing with the Prison Break TV show where they use famous people's name. Their characters are named after some famous people, like Lincoln is one, and then one of the driver of JFK's limo when he was assassinated is named one of the characters in Prison Break. So this guy that ever wrote that show, it's like he has inside knowledge or something, but I'm going to do a video on that weird kind of conspiracy, and it does involve Ted Braden to an extent, and the TV show Prison Break, because there was a character in the TV show called Westmoreland. Oddly enough, Westmoreland, when you think of that name, you think of the general in Vietnam. And the DB Cooper character in Prison Break, the character's name was Westmoreland. So it gets more interesting than that. Okay, thanks, Zephyr. I'll check out what you sent. But anyway, going back, who was it? Jim, did you ask about Wolfgang Gossett? I always liked Wolfgang Gossett as a Cooper suspect. Gossett is a really interesting guy. He was a ghost hunter. There's a YouTube video of William Gossett. If you just type in William Gossett, I think it was before he changed his name to Wolfgang, or maybe not. It's either William or Wolfgang, because he later changed his name to Wolfgang for some bizarre reason. But there's a story on there of him, ghost hunting. He did like paranormal stuff. He was good friends with Clyde Lewis, a Ground Zero radio host. And Gossett told his sons that he was DB Cooper. He told a couple of his attorneys that he was DB Cooper. Apparently, he showed his son Greg Gossett safety deposit box in Vancouver, British Columbia, where the money was stored. So it's interesting story about Gossett. He had military training. He was over in Vietnam, but as far as I can tell, he was an advisor in Vietnam. Never saw combat in Vietnam. And if you look into him deeply, you'll see things that say that he got a Purple Heart in Vietnam and was in combat. It's not true. There's a lot of things about him that are stretched out there, so you have to vet him. And I know people like to point out that, the Ted Braden was a little short for the height descriptions of Cooper. Well, I found some pictures of Wolfgang Gossett, which doesn't give his height, but he's standing around a group of other men, at least 2 or 3 from the newspapers. And this guy looks shorter than Ted Braden ever was. So that's another thing to keep in mind. I mean, some people can just, if no one's studying these guys, who's going to really, they'll just take your word for it. Oh, you're 5'10". Okay, gotcha. You have to vet it all out. And I don't think he was very thoroughly vetted, but I still like Gossett as a Cooper suspect. I'd probably put him in a good number 2. So I'm in agreement with Darren Schaefer of the Cooper Vortex there, which was cool of Darren to put his, they asked him when he did a interview for the Portland Oregonian newspaper for the 50th anniversary of the D.B. Cooper jump, who he liked as a suspect. And he basically said, hey, I'm not sold on anybody, but if I had to pick a couple of names right now, I'd say Wolfgang Gossett and Ted Braden. So that was cool that he did that. And for the newspaper record for the D.B. Cooper case, which of course is a Portland Oregonian. Yeah, Sepher, I see what you're saying here. Yeah, I've seen this picture of, it says county deputies arrested Ted Braden, 46, Blue Island, for, improper passing. Yeah, that was when he was driving his 18-wheeler. And I think he caused a wreck there. But yeah, it says that he was 46 years old at the time. So yeah, that was 75. You're right, because during the Cooper skyjacking, Braden was 43. And of course, all the witnesses said D.B. Cooper was middle-aged. Ted Braden on Thanksgiving Eve of 71 was 43 years old. I think I've screwed up a couple times on a couple interviews and said he was 44. I wasn't trying to fudge. He was 43. So here it says that he was 46 years old, Sepher, when he got arrested for that. I think, it says improper passing. So it was something he did in his 18-wheeler to get in trouble. Just bad driving there. It wasn't anything like when he stole the fish and meat and some other stuff. And then he had a DWI, like I said, and he got pulled over, and he refused to give the police officer his name. I mean, that's the kind of guy Ted Braden was. He was like, I don't have to tell you my name. And you're like, oh, you're going to jail anyway. So he was just a strange guy like that. But yeah, that's definitely one that looks like a traffic infraction there. But going back, I forgot, to Nicky. And Nicky's a great guy. Nicky has his own D.B. Cooper suspect, which is James Edward Klansnick. I don't know if you're on Nicky. So it's really cool when Nicky finds stuff that supports Ted Braden as D.B. Cooper. He sends it to me. I mean, that's just like the cool people you meet doing this stuff. Guys like Nicky, Darren Schaefer that I mentioned. With Zodiac, you got guys like, Ross, you're great. Ross is so cool. And of course, you have Ned. Ned's awesome. Ned's always been good. Ned did a show about me before I ever met Ned, and it was on YouTube, and he was, talking about my theory about Zodiac. I was like, that was when I was first thinking I was getting somewhere. Like, oh man, this guy's got this show called Black Box Online, and he's talking about my theory. And then I reached out to him and became friends with Ned. Ned's a great guy. But Nicky, Ned, Darren, just so many cool guys out there. Sepher, so many guys. Tony, of course. And but anyway, Nicky sent this, and it's this guy named Mark Lane. And I think Nicky, I've seen this guy's name before. I don't remember where, but he's in all these Facebook groups with all these guys that were either in post-Vietnam, or guys that were the sons of people that were in Vietnam, either special forces or people that did the Southern Air Transport drops over in Vietnam, maybe, in the 727s. That's why, people always look that way for D.B. Cooper, because D.B. Cooper knew the Boeing 727 could be jumped. He knew the plane could take off. Hi, Terry. He knew the plane could take off with the aft stare down, which the pilots didn't even know that, and D.B. Cooper did. He knew the plane could take off from the ground with the aft stare down. And the pilot said, no, you can't. And Cooper got in an argument with the pilot saying, Cooper wanted the plane to take off from Seattle with the aft stare down, because he didn't want to have to worry about getting it down once the plane was in flight, because he knew he was going to jump out of the back of it with his parachute. And he got in an argument with the pilot saying, you're going to take off with it down. They said, no, it'll damage the aircraft. That cannot be done. And so Cooper relented, and the plane took off with the stare up. And then, of course, famously, the stair got lowered down with the help of Tina Mucklow, the flight attendant. And actually, Cooper was trying to get the aft stair lowered himself and needed help. But he knew the plane could take off with it down, and it could. And most people didn't know that. But anyway, Nicky does great DB Cooper research. Nicky has his own channel, and it's got a lot of new DB Cooper stuff will be on it. And I think it's Finding DB Cooper with Nicholas Broughton. And he actually has some recordings from the ground crew on there now, and he's going to release some more of those. So check out Finding DB Cooper on YouTube, Nicholas Broughton. But anyway, he sent me this screenshot, and from a guy named Mark Lane. He said, my father flew CAT Airlines in the Indochina War, 1950 to 53, a CIA front. He told me in early 1970s that DB Cooper was ex-MACV SOG Vietnam. Ted B. Braden was the man. So there you go. There's another guy that was told by his father that they knew who the real DB Cooper was, and his name was Ted Braden. It's not just because this guy was a daredevil and probably the best skydiver that ever lived. It's because they knew. Somebody told the guys up top, yeah, we know it was him. Either they caught up with him. That's why part of the money was found on the Tina bar in 1980, the $5,800. Which reminds me, I was messaging back and forth with Brian Ingram yesterday, the kid that found the money. Of course, he's not a kid anymore. I think Brian's a little older than me. But sent Brian a book. Brian actually wanted me to sign the book. And I was like, usually I just send books directly from Amazon, but he wanted me to sign it, which I thought that was cool. How did you miss the beginning, Red Feather? You never miss the beginning. So anyway, I signed the book for Brian. So I told him, hey, just if I can get a picture of you holding the book, that'd be really neat. That the kid that found DB Cooper's money is holding a book that I wrote, which would really be a nice little keepsake for me. And Brian's really into the case. I mean, of course, because he's the kid that found the money in 1980, but he collects various DB Cooper things. The movie, he's got a poster of the movie. I think the Treat Williams one, and then this guy's album that was DB, song about DB Cooper, and he collects all that stuff and newspaper articles. So he's really into it. Of course, he still has some of the bills left. He sold a lot of them. I don't blame him because they're going for so much money. That the DB Cooper bills that he found, the ones he got to keep. And God, there was one on eBay. I don't know if that one was real or not. If anybody knows or found out about that one, let me know. But there was one. It looked kind of funny to me, but it was. I think they wanted $40,000 for it. I mean, something crazy. I mean, all the bills are eroded to some degree, but if you have the one that has the whole centerpiece and you can still see the middle part of it, and those are going for huge money. I would think even the scraps that have a little bit of color on them now are probably going for $3,000 or $4,000, just the little shards. So Brian, if you're watching, my birthday's in July, but I'm accepting early presents. Brian, if you have a little bit of those left, I'll take them. And I know they're good if they're coming from you, because I know you have some of those shards left, but I'll find out. And I'll definitely share that photo if Brian sends it. But he's a really nice guy. Lives in Minna, Arkansas still. And I love keeping up with Brian. So, and going back, Yuba County Five is going to be big for next month, February. Of course, that's the month that the boys went missing in 1978. And I'll be putting out, there's a big podcast coming out about that on February 24th, the exact date that the boys went missing in 78. And this group is putting that on. And it's going to be really intensive. It's going to be more stuff that's ever been known about the Yuba County Five. There's stuff that I don't even know, that Tony Doug Wright probably doesn't even know. I know, Tony, you know a lot more than me, Tony Doug Wright. And it's just amazing what this group that's putting this podcast together has been able to get as far as documents, pictures, stuff that's just the resources they have are mind-blowing. So my goal personally, I want them to do a Zodiac podcast based on my work. And being able to tap into some of their resource stuff. I mean, because they have ex detectives and stuff, and just really Shannon that works for them just has great resources, and just doggedly pursues any lead to find this kind of stuff. They had already done a podcast about the Long Island serial killer Lisk, and there's a podcast out. It's on Mopac Audio if you check that out. So the one about Yuba County Five is coming out on Mopac if you find that, and follow them on Instagram. But they're going to be putting out stuff leading up to that podcast coming out in February, and I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be a big show. And of course, my hope is after that's over, I want them to do Zodiac, because I think that's the best way to get it out. Like, Monster was a really big Zodiac podcast, and I like parts of Monster, but a lot of them were like talking to people that were like remembered Arthur Lee Allen from a gas station or something. But some of it was good, but some of it was a little not totally on target. But that's really my hope, is to dig into their resources and put it in a format that people really like. Because a lot of people don't read books, they just don't, and they just like that format of a podcast to really dig in. They might do it a 4 or 5 part series, and you can listen to an hour a day. But just take a look at the R.H. Barlow. What does that mean, Sepher? You may find something about the desktop poem. Are you still on the desktop poem, Sepher? I thought you were like not a big believer in Sherry Jo Bates, because I've never been a big believer in Sherry Jo Bates being a Zodiac crime. I know Ross Planet X Films is doing a YouTube. I'm sure it's on YouTube, right, Ross? Because all your stuff is, so it'll be on YouTube under Planet X Films. He's doing these great non-canonical Zodiac crime videos, and he did Ray Davis, of course, and then he did the Swindles, the Swindles down in San Diego, because that's where Ross is. And now I know he's doing one on Riverside. So hopefully, I bet Ross is going to come out with some great stuff on that nobody even knows. And I bet Ross will get to the bottom of these hoaxed Sherry Jo Bates confession letters that supposedly the guy sent in that said he was just they were hoaxed, and they found out that he couldn't have been the Zodiac Killer. So that kind of like sent the Sherry Jo Bates crime as being Zodiac kind of down a little bit in the rankings. I was never a big believer in Bates being a Zodiac crime. Of course, he would take credit for it, but I just don't think it was him. I have a good feeling that Ross is going to come out with some really good stuff on it. He told me that he had surprise. He told me that he has a surprise coming out. I don't know if it affects me or my theory or just in general about Riverside and Sherry Jo Bates, but I think he's got something, and I don't know when that video is coming out, but definitely be watching for Planet X Films release on that, because these are just getting better and better when Ross does these films. So I'd love to know about that. But I don't know what you're talking, except for let me know what you're talking about with Bates. I heavily lean against that being a Zodiac crime. I think it was the boyfriend. And if anyone knows out there, is the boyfriend still alive? Because that's another thing. Somebody said that he was, and he said, Don didn't kill Sherry Jo, that's for sure, but I found this guy's R.H. Barlow, never heard of him. I remember, it wasn't R.H. on the, that was the initials on the desktop, right? So send that to me. I don't know who it is, but so I guess, Sepher, you don't think it was BB, we know who that is, but someone said that BB had died, and Ross will get his great red feather. So BB, supposedly, somebody told me he died. And I know Professor Horn said that a few times, and I might have even said his real name, but hopefully not, because I looked today, kind of helping Ross out, and I can't find it. As far as I can tell, the guy's still alive. I don't know who spread the rumor that her former boyfriend, that's also a suspect in her murder of Sherry Jo Bates, had died, but to me it looks like he did not, because I searched everywhere, and I cannot find a record of this guy passing away in the past year. Past few months. I can't. So if anybody knows, definitely drop that in the comments or email me for sure. But Sepher, let me know what you found out about that, because I've never been a big believer in that being a Zodiac crime. I'm not. Was Ross Sullivan involved in that? Who knows? It looks like she definitely knew her killer, because when she came out of the library, she was gone for a few hours before they heard all the commotion in that courtyard. So definitely looks like it is the Mandela effect, Falcon. The Mandela effect is real. I don't know what causes that, but it is real. It never with me was exactly with Mandela, but there's about 1,000 other things that were. That's true, except for the DNA didn't match the boyfriend. The boyfriend came back to Riverside because he was living in another country. And as soon as, I guess the story went, as soon as he got off the plane, they tested his DNA, because they have some DNA I guess they got underneath Sherry Jo Bates' fingernails, and it was negative. Yes, the boyfriend's DNA was negative, but, the DNA is not infallible. It's just not. A couple of his friends passed lie detectors saying that it was him, the boyfriend, and it could have been, one of them probably assisted him. So maybe it's the DNA of one of his friends that were never tested, or I don't know. But yes, that's true. They did test his DNA, And as the story went, when they took him in at the airport to get his DNA sample, he made a comment like, "What took you so long?" Or, you never know if any of that's true. But that was always said about the Sherry Joe Bates when they picked up the boyfriend years later at the airport to test his DNA. He was like, kind of, "What took you so long?" Like he knew he was guilty, but of course it did. Like Suffer said, it did come back negative. So who knows? But he told a lot of people when that happened that he was pretty upset with her. Of course, she had gone to San Francisco and gotten engaged to another man, so he was pretty mad. He told a couple of his buddies how mad he was, and he was going looking for her. And then it does look like she knew whoever killed her because she was gone for a good amount of time after she left the library. Of course, her car never moved because the distributor cap was disabled. And they didn't hear that commotion in that courtyard until, I don't know, I don't remember if it was midnight or whatever, but she left the library around 7 or 8 p.m. I don't recall. But I'm not a believer that Sherry Joe Bates is a Zodiac crime. What interests me the most about Sherry Joe Bates, and Ross, if you're listening, I know your video is probably almost done, but and it's just coming to me now, is how did Paul Avery get tipped off about it? Why does Paul Avery get the scoop on everything with the Zodiac? Why does Paul Avery get the slow boat to China letter, which is what tipped him to Bates potentially being a Zodiac crime? Of course, the guy Phil Sins, the informant for Riverside, says that he's the one that called Paul Avery about it, and that just didn't pan out. The Paul Avery knew about it because someone sent him a letter called Slow Boat to China, because that reference is made in there about the slow boat. So Google that, Slow Boat to China letter and Paul Avery. That's the connection with Avery and Sherry Joe Bates' murder at Riverside. But why does Paul Avery always get the scoop? Why does the special pal, the secret friend, always get the special scoop? I don't know. Maybe because he knew somebody in Bakersfield. It's just Paul Avery knows more. We need to know more. You can't know enough about Paul Avery. Just such an interesting guy. I know we were talking about Avery on that show I just did with Ross and Ned and Professor Horn. We always go back to Paul Avery, what he knew, all these strange connections with Paul Avery. Like, of course, he was born in Hawaii. He was born in the same hospital as Arthur Lee Allen. Just 4 months later, his biological father was a naval officer. His adoptive father was a naval officer, but his birth father was Depew. Howard Malcolm Avery was his adopted father, and Paul Stewart Depew was his biological father. And I think he got divorced 2 or 3 years after Avery was born, and then his mom remarried Howard Malcolm Avery. But his biological father was probably in the same circles as Arthur Lee Allen's father, Ethan Warren Allen, because they were both in Hawaii at the same time. They were both the same rank in the Navy. Those guys were probably crossing paths. Right, it probably could have just been a coincidence, but it's just strange all the tie-ins you have with Avery. But Riverside's probably never going to go away. But I'm really looking forward to what Ross has on the Riverside stuff. So that's kind of the updates going on now. Tom Voigt talked about this DNA. It's like, yeah, Chris, Avery's secret pal. Yeah, you're right, Chris. That's my opinion. And of course, Voigt said that there was this DNA maybe be coming out from one of the Zodiac letters that he said couldn't have been the Zodiac. So people are wondering if that's because the person was too young, or if it's a female or a non-white person, which makes the most sense because you could tell that from DNA. You could tell if it's male or female, and you could tell the race. So maybe they found a black person's DNA or a female. So they're like, well, we found this DNA on the letter, but can't be the Zodiac because it's not a white male. So, but whatever they found, we need to know who the person is, because if you can tie that to a suspect, then you have something there. No, Suffer. We've talked about that. But I'm interested, of course, to see where that DNA leads. It could go anywhere. If it's tied to anybody, who knows? I mean, Fred Manali interested me. That's why I just did all those videos on Fred Manali. Who knows who Fred Manali could be tied to? Arthur Lee Allen, if he could be tied to anybody, Hal Snook, all these different guys. Who knows? I mean, did he ever know Allen or Phil Tucker or just any of these guys in the mix down in Vallejo? Don't want to go down the Darling Ferret rabbit hole. Yeah, everybody agrees with Chris on that. But we'll see. I just feel like something's going to happen there soon. Something's going to happen there soon. And Sepher, keep sending me that stuff you were sending me. Don Giovanni, that's what I couldn't remember the other day, Sepher, the stuff that you were pointing out about Don Giovanni. Of course, he likes the name Don and Don Giovanni, the Mozart opera. But he showed a lot of things about the fonts. The stuff Tony and I found about the Fortran codes. You never told me what you thought about that, Sepher. Is a lot of those misspelled Zodiac words, particularly in the cipher, are Fortran commands. They are. Those couldn't have been misspelled randomly. Those are Fortran codes, and not many people knew the computer program Fortran in the early 70s. I mean, it was developed in 1956 through 58 mostly, and then grew, but most people did not know any computer program in the early 70s. But Fortran was out there, and you had to be something like an engineer to know the Fortran codes. So I think that needs a harder look for sure. But we'll see where it goes. I have a good feeling that some things are going to open up in the Zodiac case. Hopefully DB Cooper, going back to Cooper, I know Mark Zaid's the one that got a lot of the FOIA documents released, and he was on that whole team with the case breakers. Of course, nobody here likes Gary Post as a Zodiac suspect, in the shadow of the stump. But those guys were the team behind DB Cooper suspect Robert Rackstraw, who was looked at already by the FBI twice. Oh, that brings me up. It was somebody asked about Ralph Himmelsbach in the comment section about how he claimed that DB Cooper would swear a lot. That's not true. Of course, Tina Mucklow completely debunked that. Said DB Cooper was a perfect gentleman. He never swore. It was like Ralph Himmelsbach just hated a guy. Like, he hated DB Cooper. He said he was a no pull. He's dead. He was just this bad, terrible criminal and just this putrid guy. But Tina Mucklow said that DB Cooper never swore and that he was a perfect gentleman. Well, that sounds a lot like Ted Braden. Ted Braden didn't cuss. He was always respectful towards women. He did have a violent side. But by all accounts, he was very respectful towards women. Yeah, Chris said Fortran codes couldn't possibly be accidentally. So many connections Cheney had. Yeah, he did. The Fortran codes are stunning. And thanks to Tony Donnelly a lot for helping develop those with me. And actually, Tony sent me, God, I got so many emails here to go through, but he sent a whole list of the Fortran and everything and put it in this nice, just this great order. And I'll bring that up. I'll do another show and go through that, because Tony, you've been doing some great stuff, and you got it all in this printed format. And he did all the Fortran codes, and then some of the other words, of course, paradise and all that he has there too. And then a timeline he's working on. The timeline is great. It always helps to have a timeline. And then he's updating that. So it's great to have these guys, Sepher and Tony and everybody, and Sean, always, sending me stuff and just helping, like crowdsourcing and getting a lot of this stuff. Nikki helps me crowdsourcing with DB Cooper. And it's just great having everybody doing that. That's helping me. And if I ever forget anything, just put it in the comments or email me. And if you ever want anything, definitely you want mentioned on the show, or you want to know if we can put it out there for other people to help figure something out, just email me and I'll remember to put it out here on a live show or something like that. But yeah, the Fortran stuff, that needs a harder look, because it's just, people say like, oh, other people would have known what a radian is. Who would really know what a radian was outside? I mean, I didn't even know what it was in high school, okay? I didn't, especially later. Who's going to really know? Yeah, the 13-hole letter, it's Fortran. I mean, that's code. The 14-hole, it's a punch card. That's what computers used in the early 70s. They had punch cards. Like Fortran had one that said Fortran on it with the punch holes. Yeah, the 13-hole punch card. There's a lot of early computing stuff in there. Of course, maybe Panzarella had a little role in there. Panzarella was a computer engineer, super smart guy, so he knew the computer ends backward and forward. But many people would not known radian, the mathematics behind the 340, and they just wouldn't even mention a radian. This is somebody's thinking mathematically here, which it's not somebody like Manali, who could have known someone, or they could have gotten his writings from somewhere because they were everywhere. Who knows? But definitely got so much mathematics going on with Zodiac. That's why the Fortran, I love that one. Needs to be looked at a little more. But that's all I got for now. Again, happy birthday, Elvis. I'll probably be doing another live. I know I got another guy's show Tuesday, and I'll put something out about that. A live show Tuesday on somebody else's YouTube channel. So I'll probably do something Wednesday. But anyway, thanks for everybody watching. Everybody have a great week. Thank you.